Hi, and welcome back to another Learning 3D Design for Wargaming with me, Mac the Maker. Today we're going to be designing some basic Wargaming crates. Nice thing about these is they're pretty basic, and depending on how you do them, you can use them for a multitude of scales, or you can go ahead and church them up a bit, and they'll be kind of stuck for one scale use, but they may look a little bit better on the table. So, to get started, like I usually do, wrote a quick blog entry over on macthemaker.com. Again, crates, unlike some of the other subjects we've done, all over the board in size, shape, so whatever you feel like will definitely work for this. Start off with here on TinkerCad, and go ahead and pull a box over to the work plane, and I'm going to go ahead and pull the ruler over onto the work plane as well. Our box is a standard default 20 by 20 by 20, and for this, that'll be fine. We're going to duplicate this as we go and kind of use our base crate as a building block for other ones. So we'll go ahead and grab another box onto the work plane. I'm going to actually change this to a hole. So we're going to change it to 16 by 16 in the x-axis and the z-axis, or the width and the height axis. And for the depth, or y-axis, I'm going to change that to 0.5 millimeter. We're going to manhandle that over just a bit. Right there's fine. I'm going to draw the selection box around everything. So we're going to align it on the x and z-axis in the middle, and then on the y-axis we're actually going to click on this most forward or bottom, kind of depending on your perspective, dot. And now you can kind of see with that shadow area, that's where our hole's going to be. The one thing I didn't do that I should have first is I'm going to click back in on that hole, that shadow area, making sure that's what I clicked on. Can't tell because it's a 16 by 16. I'm going to go ahead and hit Control D and just pull that copy over. And then we're going to need 4 more of these because we're not going to be doing the bottom. So I'm just going to, oops. So that's where the duplicate feature remembers your movement and moves your duplicate that many times. So 3 and 4. There we go. And then I'm going to come over here to the side, grab another one of our holes or our inlays, turn it by 90, kind of leave it there. And actually what I'm going to do here with that first hole and our box, I'm going to highlight just those two, and I'm going to group them together. That way as I move things, I don't get everything out of alignment. And I'm going to get these two kind of touching again. Again, I know they're touching because you get that shadow going on. Select both things, align, Z, and looks like that was a pretty good guess there. Got everything aligned. Make sure I'm only selecting those two things in group. And we'll fast forward this. So that is a pretty basic crate. Let's turn it into, let's say, more representative color. And that looks alright. And some space there for some freehanding or some little stencils if you want to try. But not too bad. But, say, we've got a couple different reference pictures I went to. I think when most people think of a crate, this one here with kind of the cross supports there are what they're thinking of, or maybe just that one support, but some kind of support like that. But we do see plenty of the more plain crates as well in Google. So go back to TinkerCad, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab this box and I'm going to duplicate it. I'm going to pull the duplicate over here, and I'm going to kind of move the original off to the side there. So we did the inlays at 16, so each board then basically on the sides is 2 millimeters wide or X. So I'm going to pull another box out, and it was 0.5 millimeters. That was the depth of our hole there, so that's what our board will be as well. And 2. And because we're going at a diagonal here, I know you can figure that out mathematically, but I'm just going to kind of throw 23 at it and see how that ends up. And I'm going to get it in the middle. We'll use a line here to get it right. And I'm just going to turn this guy to 45 degrees. And maybe, remember, control arrow down to move the arrow. And that actually looks like, it actually looks pretty good right there. So let's click just align. Make sure our length and width and everything is good, or at the diagonal. So yeah, that looks pretty good. So real quick, I'm going to grab that red board we just did, Control D, move it over to the side, and then I'm going to group these guys. And then turn them 90. Get them close. One thing I did notice is usually these single cross boards, reinforcement boards, all go in the same direction. So we're just going to turn that, there we go, 90 degrees, and blue or something just so I can see the line. Alright. And group. Let's get that back to our woodish color. Now we're going to pull this guy up a bit. And turn him 90 degrees. And I guess for the roof, looks like that's, yeah, sure, that's fine. And control down arrow, oops, to kind of get them somewhere in there, and align. There we go. And group. I see. Okay. So there you go. There's a single board. If you want to do the double, the cross one, and just as you're doing it, instead of doing one board, you would just do 2 and flip it over. So I'll just show you on the top here real quick. So I'm going to hit Control D. He's going to stay in place, and then just turn 90 degrees on the relevant axis there, and then group. Change that to wood yellow and group. And there you go. There you'd have a crossbeam X pattern. Alright, so real quick, I just made the crossbeam guy and put him over there. And now we can start with 1 and end up with 3. So once you have your basic building blocks done, what you can do is work on them some more and change them. So I like this. This is a nice basic crate. Maybe I'll print 4 or 5 of these and stack them up and put them on a base as some scatter terrain. Or maybe I want some bigger ones. So I'm going to duplicate that, pull it out, maybe lift it up a little bit. Now I have a taller one. Maybe it's holding some sort of fancy statue or something like that. Or I can make it shorter. Maybe go for something like the Ark of the Covenant in Indiana Jones. So a little smaller, but you get the idea. So once you kind of have the basic ones done, you can copy them and make your changes. You want an ammunition one, you can maybe make it a little smaller there. And now you have some artillery or tank rounds in there. There you go. That sort of thing. The last thing I'll do is a little more advanced. It's a little more tedious. I'll go ahead and get rid of that little one. And that is going to be adding some board texturing in that plane area. If you do go this route, do it before you put these cross slats on, these reinforcement slats. We're going to go ahead and give the impression of the individual boards in here. Do that, I'm going to grab another box. I'm going to change the height to 16 to match that 16mm high recess we have there. And then I'm going to change the depth or y-axis there to 0.5 again. And I'm actually going to change the x or wide axis to also 0.5. So 0.5 is a little exaggerated for what we're trying to do. But any smaller than that, and it's probably not going to print. And honestly, if you have a real cheapy FDM printer, it may not render either. But we'll give this a try at 0.5. I'm pretty confident most FDM printers will do that. So I'm just going to get them touching. I'm going to align on the X, or the Z and the X axis. We can kind of get it in the middle there. And then what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to click on that slat again and change it into a hole, because we want the kind of the recessed gaps there between the board. And I'm going to go make sure my snap grid is at 0.1, and I'm going to push that slat till it disappears and then pull it back one, so we know it's kind of buried in there. And then I'm going to recenter. Again, if you forget how to recenter, just hold that middle mouse button down and then move the mouse. So I'm going to make sure my slat is selected, and I'm going to hit Control D. And my snap grid is still at 0.1. I'm going to just move it till it looks like they're just barely touching there. Change my snap grid to 1mm, because our boards, if you remember, are 2mm wide. And 1, 2. And Control Duplicate, and now it should have automatically moved that slat 2 over. And one last time. And you can see we're a little off, taking into account the 0.5mm and 16mm and stuff, but I'm not too horribly worried about that. I'm going to change my undo and change my snap grid to 0.1, and I'm going to just try to get that about halfway. There we go. I'm going to come back to that middle one. Control D, snap grid still at 0.1. Move it over to this time to the left to where they're just touching. Snap grid to 1. 1, 2. Control D. Control D. Again, this one's off by a little bit more. Snap grid to 0.1. And like the halfway mark. There we go. Not perfect, but showing you the technique, not the math. So once you kind of get that, and then the easiest way from here is to select each of these slats. So shift and select each one. Make sure you don't select the box as well. And I'm going to group them. And I'm going to duplicate them. And again, that's just so now I can move all 6 or 7 of these at the same time and not worry about messing up the alignment. So I'm just going to pull that one off to the side, group this whole thing, and there you can kind of see our recessed slats. Like I said, that's probably a little deep for scale, but now I will say about putting these slats in, they are definitely an indicator of scale. These boards would be absolutely massive at 10mm, whereas this kind of crate without any indication, you can probably get away with maybe at 10 millimeter is a giant crate. It would definitely work between regular 156 28 millimeter and the more heroic variations of that. So just something to keep in mind. So, and then we just do the slats like we did the reinforcement boards. Turn 90 degrees. Should probably duplicate these. So 3, and then so that'll be 4 and 5, and then you'll just go around and do this just like you did with the reinforcement boards, and then after that, and then group it. And if you decide you then want to do the reinforcements over that, just like before, change this guy to 2, change him to 0.5, and the height to 16. Or no, I'm sorry, the height on that one was 23 to account for the diagonal. Move them in. 45. Hit the line. And then group. And there you go. So hopefully you learned a couple techniques and learned how to build variants and duplicates off of an initial starting point, and working out that. I do that all the time. If I'm not sure which way I want to go with the design, I'll just duplicate it and go both ways and see how it goes from the original, and then delete the one I don't like, or both of them, and start over. So if you like this video, found it entertaining, found it educational, click like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time.